Welcome back to the show. Every week on Power of Attorney, we ask our viewers to send their legal questions about the next show's topics. You guys have done a great job, as always, of sending questions to us on Twitter, Facebook, by email. So let's get on to your questions about domestic law right now. Let's see. Well, actually, before we get to the questions, I really wanted to follow up on that self-help desk that you were instrumental in providing to the community in Orleans Parish on the 4th floor of the Civil District Courthouse. That's at the corner of Loyola and Poydras, right across from the Superdome, right next door to City Hall. There's a self-help desk. Explain for our viewers, what can people who have a case in domestic court find there?
Okay. As a legal services lawyer, we recognize that there are so many litigants that come in domestic court and can't afford a lawyer. And so the LSBA has the State Bar Association has the Access to Justice Committee that I've served over for a number of years. So when Judge Tiffany Chase was in domestic, we approached her, and a self-help desk was created over at Civil District Court. Now, as the family court judge and the first family court judge, it is my I'm really excited about improving the desk over there and working with attorneys that can come and provide services. What they do is basically they don't give legal advice. These are lawyers in major private law firms that come and do pro bono hours, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Pro bono hours
means they just donate their services.
Their services and their time. And what is available there is these forms. For instance, if you are wanting to file a petition for divorce, having been separated for 180 days or 365 days,
right.
if you have children.
On our
yes.
Stacey Williams-Marcel show. Marcel Williams show, right.
Yeah, and so after the required or requisite separation, they have the forms, and they'll help you, tell you what you need to fill out, and then you can just walk over next door and file that petition with the clerk of court. If you are eligible under the federal poverty guidelines, you can also fill out an IFP, which is an informal pauper application.
Which is a fancy way of saying you're too poor to be expected to pay the court fees.
That's right, at the time of filing the petition. And so they help you with those forms too. And then they explain what the procedure is and the process to ultimately get your divorce.
So it makes the court a lot more user-friendly.
Oh, yes.
There's all different sorts of forms for different needs you may have in family court in those different categories: divorce, child custody, child support. And assuming it's not too complicated, you may be able to help yourself without having to get a lawyer.
That's right.
And if you've got a more complicated case, you might be able to get help through the Loyola Law Clinic or through the Southeast Louisiana Services.
Legal Services.
And these are places, and we'll put the information on our website.
And if you're domestic violence, if you're a domestic violence victim, you can always call the Tulane Law School Clinic.
All right, well, we do have a lot of questions, so let's try and get to these questions. One viewer question: if I want to go straight to mediation for a custody disagreement with my ex, what should my first step be?
I think you find a qualified, certified mediator in order to start the mediation process.
So in order to be a mediator in family court, you can't just say that you are. You have to be certified, recognized as a certified mediator.
Qualified mediator.
In the eyes of the courts.
That's right.
Okay. And ideally, you get your ex to agree to go see the mediator.
That's
and you may be able to do it without either one of you having a lawyer, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And mediation, just to be clear, you do not, when you go to mediation, nobody's going to twist your arm and force you to agree to anything. You either both agree or you have no agreement.
That's right.
You might agree on some certain things and not agree on everything, but you might be able to streamline your issues and only have a couple left to fight over, and that's going to save time and money, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Next question. Do I need a lawyer if I'm going to mediation? I think we sort of halfway answered that.
That's right. You do and you don't. I mean, if you're able to resolve all of the issues and confect a consent agreement, you can do that. But a lawyer sometimes is helpful in preserving some of your rights if the case is rather complicated, or narrow the issues as to what can go to mediation and what needs to go to court.
We talked about this before we filmed the show. If it's very important issue, if it's a lot of money at stake, if you're dividing up property, if obviously child custody can be very important, and you really are at odds with your ex, well, it might be worth getting that lawyer just to do that homework and that preparation if you're really concerned about safety, if you're not sure that the environment that your ex wants to put your child in is safe. A lawyer can't hurt, but it's one of those things where you're not disagreeing about that much, and both of you just want to know what your rights are. Maybe go to mediation and see if you can both be satisfied. But then if you're not satisfied, maybe the next step might be a lawyer. Next question, how long does it take to get a restraining order? How long does a restraining order last?
Well, the restraining order, in terms of a petition for protection from abuse, you get it right away once you file the petition and you've made your allegation, and it rises to the level of domestic violence.
You have to prove that you have something that the court says, I'm satisfied a restraining order should be issued.
Yes, and the restraining order is good for 21 days because there is a contradictory hearing, and at the contradictory hearing the defendant will show up or may not show up. If there is service, then the court proceeds by default.
Right. The contradictory hearing allows the other side to answer the charges.
That's right.
And say, I didn't do it, here's my counter argument.
That's right.
And
then the protection order is good under Louisiana law for 18 months.
Okay. If you prove at the contradictory hearing that the protection is needed, it can be extended for 18 months.
That's correct.
And then it can go beyond that if...
For permanent injunction.
Okay. Next, is there any kind of financial aid or assistance for people who cannot afford to pay court costs?
Yeah, financial aid in terms of the IFP, the informal pauper.
You can't afford to pay, the courts can excuse you from paying that. Okay, and remember, we've talked about how if you can't afford a lawyer, there's law clinics, there's the Southeast Louisiana.
And the New Orleans Family Justice Center.
Okay, and if you go to our website, you can get links to these places. We'll hope to have it on our website within 24 hours, if not by the time this show is aired. My husband has abandoned my family and I can't contact him. Can I divorce him even if I cannot find him?
Yes, if you cannot find the husband and you've made every attempt to try to serve him, you can appoint a curator. And for people that can't afford to pay the curator costs, then Loyola Law Clinic has a family law clinic. And their students come before the court because under Supreme Court Rule 20, they can, there are student attorneys that are supervised by a supervising attorney at the law school. And so they make efforts to find the absent defendant. They'll put an ad in the newspaper and they'll do all the required things.
Just to make sure that there's not one spouse just being clever while the husband is away on business. You're just inventing a story that he ran off when in fact he works out of the country, or some story, or he's away on, he's in the military. A curator is somebody who is disconnected from you, who says, I ran an ad in the paper looking for this person, and I did my own investigation to make sure it's just not somebody who's away on business.
The curator truly is an attorney for the absent defendant, and they submit a note of evidence proving to the court that they made every effort to find the defendant, and therefore the court should now proceed in granting the judgment.
How often does this happen where a curator needs to be appointed for a missing spouse?
I've seen quite a few cases actually, and Loyola Law Clinic oftentimes come in with these students to help people that can't afford.
The spouse may have gone off and been hurt in an accident or killed, and nobody reported back what happened. A curator needs to report back to the court that he ran the ad in the paper, or she ran the ad in the paper, she did her due diligence, but the person never surfaced.
However, if Loyola Law Clinic is successful, or any curator is successful in finding the defendant, then they withdraw, because then they say this was your notice, you're being served with this petition.
Okay, we have time for one more question. If my wife and I wish to divorce, do we need to involve lawyers even if we have no children and no assets to divide?
If there are no children, there's no spousal support, no partitioning of community property, a simple divorce, they can go up to the 4th floor and get those forms and file that in court to get a simple 1031 divorce.
1031, that's the
that is
civil
the one
code
having
article.
Yes, that's having lived separate and apart for a period of 6 months, and you do not have to prove fault because it's a no fault
Yeah,
divorce.
I mean, the more parents agree, well, look, you go your way, I'll go my way, we'll just get a divorce. I don't want anything from you, you don't want anything from me. You fill out the form. That's the rare example where divorcing spouses are not at each other's throats. One's not trying to take advantage of the other, or not necessarily trying to take advantage, but they simply agree on parting amicably.
Yeah, and even if you have children, you can go to the 4th floor because they have, if you both agree, I mean both parties agree it's going to be joint custody, and they agree that one of the parent is a domiciliary parent, they have the joint custody implementation plan, so you can pick out amicably what holidays you want to alternate. If you work all that out, you have forms up there that you can just file with the court and get a judgment.
Now, if it's unamicable, if it's not friendly, can parents try to use the forms and get a divorce?
They can try to come before the court, but it really is helpful if you have a lawyer representing. And I mean, the court really does its best in order to help self-represented litigants that come before the court.
Or
we have to do our job.
Maybe you can't agree on what's fair and who should have the child of Christmas, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. But that's where mediation might help. If the mediator says, well, listen, in this court in front of this judge, you're not going to get sole custody. The judge generally does it this way. There are statutes that talk about how child support is figured out, and when both parents hear that this is what the law really is, and the mediator is not beholden to one side or the other, they might be able to work it all out, or most of it.
But
and
if
that's
they're
one
not
reason why
able,
mediation works. And if they hear it might cost $15,000 on a low end to fight this thing out for a long time, they might say, you know what, that might be the better path.
But as a judge, I also have conducted trials where both parties were self-represented, because I still have to weigh the evidence in light of the law and grant a just ruling. And so I've done trials where both parties are self-represented.
Yeah. All right, well, unfortunately, our time has run out. We could certainly talk for hours and hours. So we're going to have to conclude the show here. But the good news for you viewers, those who, just like you can't get enough of this fascinating information, we are going to have an extended web segment on JRPOA, or JohnRedmannPOA.com. We're excited to make that announcement to you. But join us on our website. There will also be more information about all of the stuff we've talked about. So join us on JohnRedmannPOA.com or JRPOA, and join us for all the other episodes of this show. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you next week for more interesting topics and discussions. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.